if you look at a spinning top and it's black and white and you spin it at speeds of infinity, it will look great. Now, the more that it starts to slow down, the more you see the black and white, but the more that spinning top wobbles. Now, the more someone wobbles in life, the more they'll see black and white, and the more fundamentalist they become in thinking, where they'll sit there and they'll go, well, things are either right or they're wrong. You do it this way or you do it that way. And they'll judge people based on right and wrong and black and white, and everything's fundamental to them. But that's the worst place to be.
Welcome to Marketing with Vino, the edutainment business growth podcast, mixing education and entertainment to make growing your service business much more fun. Your hosts, Quinton Venter, online marketing expert, and Gabby Kowalski, creator of the Business Freedom Formula, have a glass of wine and share powerful and up-to-date strategies to help grow your service business fast.
Hey guys, welcome to another amazing, energetic, special episode, Marketing with Vino. Joining us is the most amazing Gabs. Welcome, Gabs.
Hello, awesome peoples.
And joining us as well is a special guest, Michael Johnson, also called the Mojo Master. Welcome, Michael.
Excellent. Thanks very much for having me, guys. I'm really looking forward to having a good chat today anyway.
Yeah,
absolute pleasure.
Guys.
So Michael and Gabby, they met in Bali with Reagan's retreat. So Gabby took the initiative to contact Michael to bring him onto the show. Gabby, tell us a little bit about your story with what Michael was about at the event and what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, guys, just first up, this guy is very special and I'm freaking honored to have him on our podcast. It's not very often I come across someone who actually makes me go, oh, you're freaking awesome. I want to get to know you. Here's some extra love for Michael. So as you guys know, you've been, especially if you've been listening to us for the whole time, we've literally only had 2 people on this podcast in over a year. So over 50 episodes have gone out. We've only had 2 people come on, and we're very selective with who we share with you. But when I saw Michael speak, I just thought, I want to share you with our people because everyone needs to hear your version and how you talk about quantum physics, how you talk about mindset. And I believe that what he's got to share with you guys is going to be super valuable. Michael, better known as the Mojo Master, founded mojomaster.com, and he's the absolute rock star in that. Today he's going to be sharing with you guys, I think it was inspiration versus desperation, or was it something else? Did I write that correctly?
That's good. I'll talk about anything really. I'll talk to anyone about anything that I can possibly think of talking about because that's something that is my passion, is just talking in general. I think every report card I had from reception to grade 12 at school said Michael talks too much. So yeah, I'll just start talking. But yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, and guys, that is so true. I think he was meant to be. He came to speak at a mastermind I was at in Bali in December, and I think he was meant to have a half an hour slot. Is that correct? Half an hour to an hour? And
I think so.
Yeah, it may have gone, a few hours over that, but it was so freaking awesome. And I'm just going to head it over to Michael. First, I want to know a little bit about you. So Michael's got a mindset coaching business, and he runs seminars and does really awesome, game-changing stuff. Just to give the crowd a little bit of a background on you, Michael, what's your story? What had you start this business, and what is it that you're doing for humanity?
Cool. I think probably like most people, I think when they start a business, it wasn't really my intention to start a business. It was sort of something that just happened for a few reasons. But I guess if I go back to really tell you a little bit about me, because I think the story is always the interesting part of someone's journey and not just where they're at. But, when I was a kid, I used to just sit around all the time and just think about things. I was one of those weird kids that used to just sit by themselves and just look out at the ocean, or my parents had a shack up in the Riverland, and I used to just sit there and just think about life in general. It was awesome. And my mum had me at 17 in a Catholic family, so that brought some sort of family dynamics going on. And my dad's like the most Aussie bogan guy you can possibly imagine. His favourite haircut is the mullet, and if he could, he'd bring it back into fashion. So they're sort of completely opposites, but they're still together, and they have an amazing relationship. And when I was young growing up, they partied a lot. So I used to go to parties and I would sit there and just watch all these social dynamics happening. And I was always just fascinated that I would watch someone rock up in this old bomb of a car and get out with ripped clothes, and people would just gather around them, and I'd sit there and go, why is it that that person just naturally is like a magnet and they attract certain types of people and everyone talks great about them? Yet someone would rock up in this really fancy car and get out with great clothes and everything like that. And then I'd just hear these people talking crap about them. And I would sit there and go, what is it? But it wasn't just about the car, because someone else would rock up in an old crusty car and people would talk crap about them as well. And someone would rock up in a nice car and people would say great things about them. So I was always fascinated by that. And then when I went to school, my mum really wanted me to go to university and to be, I guess, the best that I could be. And that was her perception, was that if I went to university, then I'd get a good education and get a good job. And I just wasn't that kid. I was put in special classes and told that I had learning difficulties. I was told that I had dyslexia as well, ADD, the whole kit and caboodle. And so I really struggled at school a lot. And I felt like, I think like most entrepreneurs as well, you feel like you're a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and you just feel like you don't really fit into the normal way of doing things. And even growing up, I was friendly with everybody, but I never really had a friendship group that I would fit into, because I didn't play a lot of sports on the weekend. I was quite good at sports, but I just didn't play on the weekends because I was always up in the Riverland water skiing and doing stuff with my parents. So it made school life really, really hard. And at 15, I was expelled from school, and I thought, I'm not going to get anywhere in life, because I was always told that you have to get a good education in order to get a good job, and when you get a good job, then you make money, and that's sort of like the be-all and end-all of life until you retire, and then whatever after that. But so at 15, after being expelled from school, I fell into this just massive rut where I felt like shit, and I'd contemplated multiple times committing suicide. And one night I was sitting there, and I had one really close friend who, I was sitting there with a big kitchen knife ready to end it all. And I just thought about the guilt that he would feel. And so I didn't end up going through with it. But, that was sort of like the breaking point there. And I think sometimes in life, I truly believe from all the studies that I've done that you can't make mistakes in life, that it is all part of your journey. And sometimes we just get less and less sensitive. And so for some people, they're not sensitive to what's going on around them. And because of that, when things hit them, they have to hit hard in order for them to feel something in order to make an assessment of life. And that was my time. Like, I hadn't really thought about who I was as a person or what I wanted to do in the world and who I was, because I was trying to live up to everyone else's expectations, especially my mum's and my family's and school and society's. And at that point in time, I just thought, I can't make anyone else happy. It felt like every person who I'd ever come in contact with, apart from my best friend, was pissed off at me about something, or I was upsetting them doing something. And I got to that point where, I hope you don't mind if I swear, but I just got to the point where I just went, you know what? Cool. I got to the point and I went, fuck it, I'm just going to make me happy. And so I really became, I just didn't care anymore. And so I did what I enjoyed, and I ended up going back to school, and I finished off school. And I became a diesel mechanic because I always loved figuring out how things work. I used to watch heaps of documentaries, and I always wanted to learn. But I think when you're a kid and you want to learn, you get put in that bucket of though, like, you're a pain in the ass all the time because you just ask too many questions. And I was that kid who, in my family, I used to just ask everybody everything about everything, and most people couldn't explain anything. I'd ask, like, why is the sky blue? Why are the clouds like that? How does a car work? And then they'd go, well, the car works this one. I'd go, yeah, but why does that work like that? And then I'd keep getting into it, and eventually they'd just go, fuck off, like, go away. You're annoying the shit out of me. Go play with something, or here's $10, go buy yourself an ice cream. And so I've always been like that. It's really, really interesting because when we look back at our lives with all the people that I've worked with, all the answers to their lives and themselves always sit right in front of them. It's just that we don't see them. So anyway, I went back and I became a diesel mechanic. And when I was there, it was the start of the mining boom in South Australia. And I thought, cool, I'm here, I'm going to make shitloads of money, go and work in the mines, I'll have life mastered. And when I was doing that, I started watching people, or especially guys, like it was a male-dominated industry. I'd watch guys go up to the mines and they'd come back and they'd be absolutely miserable. And in order to get rid of the misery, they would go out and they would buy, maybe a $100,000 car, which would trap them again for another 6 to 12 months working to pay off the car. But once they'd start to get ahead financially, they'd put a $30,000 engine in the car and then they were trapped again. And then they'd start to get ahead, and then they'd go out and they'd buy a speedboat, but they worked in the mines, so they could only use a speedboat for a weekend once a month, and plus winter's 6 months of the year, so they could really only use the boat like six weekends of a year, and that was it. And they just fell into this massive rut, and I sat there and I looked at it, and again, I just questioned everything, and I went, this is bullshit, this isn't what life's meant to be. And then I got the phone call that really no one wants to hear, and It was the best friend, the reason why I didn't go through with committing suicide when I was younger. I got a phone call that he was in hospital because he was in a car accident. And when I got to the hospital, he informed me that his 3-year-old niece, who he used to look after, was killed in that car accident. And he was in the passenger seat, and the car flipped and killed his niece instantly. And when I was at the funeral, I watched this little white coffin going into the ground. And I just sat there and I thought, how can life just be taken away just like that? You know, no sort of like warning, nothing, it just goes. And that was the first time I'd really ever considered that, like, life is that thing that we don't mess with. It's when it's gone, it is gone, and we do not get a second chance. We don't get it back. And I know that people talk about that shit all the time, but it's not until really we get really rattled in life that most people really even consider that. You know, one of my beliefs is that most people take life, they take life not very seriously, because every hour they don't think that that's an hour that they're never going to get back, and they're an hour closer to dying. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
But they take the things that happen to them in life way too seriously. So they talk about shit that happened to them 20 years ago and why everything's bad, or, you know, it's like they take the little things that happen way too seriously, but the fact that they're dying, not seriously enough. And the truth is, we're all dying. From the moment we're born, we're getting closer to it. So, you know, we've got to take that really seriously. And so at that point, when I was there, I was watching this little white coffin going into the ground, and I just asked myself, and I don't know what it was, but these questions popped into my head. And it was, what's the purpose of your life? Why do you exist? Why are you here? How are you going to be remembered when you're not here? And what makes you unique as an individual? Now, I'd never asked those questions. You know, I went through 13 years of school, and not one person ever asked those questions, you know, and school's supposed to be the thing. Yeah, school's supposed to be the thing that teaches us about life, but it never asks the questions that actually get us going in life. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it became something that drove me. And anyway, I got signed off my apprenticeship a year early, and I walked into the boss's office and I said, I can't do this. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I can't do this. Like, I'm out of here. And he said, what are you going to do? And at that point in time, the only thing that ever made me feel good was going to the gym, because I was a fat, overweight, chubby kid who had bright red hair. So I was a full-on wrangler when I was a kid and used to get picked on quite a lot. You know, I'm still a bit freckly, but I was like quite freckly as a kid as well, with pasty skin. And the gym made me feel good about myself. And when I'd go to the gym after work, it wasn't that place where everyone complained. It was a place where people, you know, used to support each other and help each other and train together. And it was like friendship and community. And so all these things started making me feel great about life. And I thought, this is somewhere where I could really work. So I started studying after hours. And for the first time in my life, I realized I was actually good at studying. Even though at school I'd pretty much failed everything, but I was actually good at studying the thing that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And so from there, I walked into the local gym after I'd quit my diesel mechanic apprenticeship and walked out that day. And my boss said to me, he said, Michael, you know, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but it's not this. And he said, Michael, don't end up like the rest of these fuckers. Go do what you love. And so I packed up the toolbox, and it's still sitting at my parents' house 12 years later. But anyway, I walked into the local gym and I said, look, just give me an opportunity, give me a chance. I'll clean toilets, I'll do anything. I want a shot. Within about 3 or 4 weeks, the boss came to me and he said, Michael, look, everyone knows you here, because I was working on the desk just checking people in. You know, back in the old days before barcode scanners, you used to have to type in people's numbers.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. And the boss came and he said, look, everyone knows you. They know who you are, and you talk to everybody, and they know that they know you're studying to be a personal trainer. If you don't tell anyone you're not qualified, why don't you just start? And so I started, you know, doing my personal training thing, and I ended up winning a whole bunch of awards, and used to train other trainers on how to train people and so on. Helped set up a franchise system as well. I was part of all of that and the training, and that's where I realized that something that I really enjoyed was talking and educating people. And eventually I just kept moving on and on, taking more challenges, and I went back and I studied high performance kinesiology and nutritional medicine as well. But I realized after that, and I was working in a rehabilitation center or in a medical center, and I was doing a lot of rehab. And that was an eye-opener, because I really wanted to just keep helping people to thrive in life. But there was so much fighting going on between nutritionists and the naturopaths, and then the physios and the chiros, and then the doctors just hated everyone. It was sort of like, you know, there was this, it wasn't about helping people. It was more about, you know, who was right and who was wrong, and all of this sort of stuff. And I used to sit there with these guys, like big burly guys, and they would sit there and go, you know, I hurt my back at work cover think I'm full of shit, work think I'm full of shit, but I'm in agony every day. I've been to the physio, I've been to the chiro, you know, nothing's working, and I'm in pain. And then now they're sending me to the psychologist or the psychiatrist because they all think it's in my head. And these guys would just break down. I thought, I just can't be in this industry anymore. So again, I moved on. And what I realized was that most people in life know what to do. They just don't do it. And that's that's what led me down the path of getting into the mindset stuff. And so I just kept studying, and wherever I've felt like there's a need for me to learn something, I've just kept studying. And, I've spent over $1 million on study over the last 10 years. And, I always pride myself on being around the best people. Like, I just keep finding them and keep studying and learning because it's what I love. And I love passing on that information. So,
oh, look, nerds are the new black. Nerds are the new sexy as far as I'm concerned. So nerds,
we all have a nerd inside of us.
We have to be doing this. So
yeah, we're nerdy about what we love, I think, anyway.
That's it, exactly, very much
so. They study what they love.
Yeah, and this is what I loved when by the way, thank you for sharing that story. It's freaking
beautiful
epic.
Story, thank you.
Because, now Michael's got this phenomenal business where they help people work on their mindset. They run events all throughout the countryside, New Zealand. I'm not sure if it goes beyond Australia and New Zealand at this point. Is it New Zealand, Australia right now?
I spoke in Mexico last year, but we haven't launched. My goal is to launch next year into the US more, as in running events and stuff over there. We do have audiences in the US, but I don't really push it at the moment. My goal was to master Adelaide, and then once I did that, because everyone told me that Adelaide's a shithole and nothing ever happens in Adelaide, and none of the big speakers used to come to Adelaide, so I thought, fuck it, let's do the hardest thing first, and we did that, and then from there we started branching out. Yeah, and now it's actually our easiest event to sell out. We had 3 weeks of marketing, and we've completely sold out our Adelaide event. It's yeah.
Yeah. And so what I loved, for me, what I absolutely loved about what you shared the day that you spoke was, just your version of quantum physics, your version of how the mind works and what really truly drives people. And I don't know if this is anything to do with the inspiration desperation thing, but I really loved what you did. You drew this wavy thing. God, that's terrible, isn't it?
That's perfect.
Imagine, I don't know, what would you call that as a shape?
It's a sine wave. So it's a sine wave. Yeah, it's just a wave. Electricity runs in. Oh,
there we go.
In sine waves, and yeah.
Thank you. So and you were mentioning talking about just the polar differences in things. I'd love it if you could share some of that with our people and how it impacts them in business, and and maybe even link that into your beautiful inspiration versus desperation thing. Because guys, this man not only conquered Adelaide, but he's got a phenomenal business and he's built it up to being a 7-figure business, and he's done a really great job, and it's a lot to do with his mindset and the work he's done on himself to get there. Would you agree with that, Mr. Mojo?
100%. I think last year we grew 700%. And so that was a pretty out of control year. This year I've sort of tried to slow it down. We're still growing pretty rapidly again, and we'll probably grow, another 200 to 400 this year. But what I found was that it is all mindset. Like the business is always directly related to the mindset of the leader, and also the person who drives the business forward, and also your ability to manage the stress and the frustration. Because what I find really interesting about a lot of business leaders that I coach, and I've got some pretty amazing clients. One of my clients sold a business for $50 million, and another client of mine, he's doing almost $1 billion in developments at the moment. So, I get to work with some pretty high achievers, including professional athletes, a couple of world record breakers as well. And what I do know, especially in business owners, is that the stress never goes away and the to-do lists never go away. So it really all comes down to how you manage yourself in that business. And also, I think I've studied not only just a lot of science, a lot of, I guess you could call it spirituality or new age sort of stuff. Also, I've been looking at a lot of philosophy, and then I got into a lot of the metaphysics, which then led me into quantum theory and a lot of neuroscience and all of those areas. And they're all looking for the same answers, really. They all bridge the same answers, but then obviously you've got pseudoscience and pseudo-religion and pseudo-spirituality who create these polar dynamics and craziness out there. But I think deep down inside we all know that that's bullshit anyway, because we keep asking questions in order to bridge the gap to come back to what is really real anyway, which is what is known as actuality. But going back to the business owner stuff, and if I can get back into a little bit of the quantum stuff, the way I came about all this stuff and what really helped me was at first I realized that my life was shit and it wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to. And I knew that I just kept getting frustrated and stressed, and that the patterns in my life kept repeating themselves. And one day I just stopped and I went, this has to change. And that's where I got into the mindset sort of area. And at first I thought it was all wanky and it didn't really, it's just all rah-rah stuff. But the more that I started studying it, the more I could see life was changing. But But I got to a point where I was implementing a lot of motivation and a lot of what was being taught in motivation and psychology fields. And what I realized was that there was this thing that was going on called positive thinking. And it was, 10 years ago that sort of influx really started into the positive thinking space. And it was really cool because it made me feel empowered from being actually negative. I felt like I was always negative, which then started making me feel positive. And then I was like one of those super positive people. But what I realized was that
we love them.
Maybe, but those like when I was being super positive, what I also realized was at the same time I was feeling like shit as well because I could never live up to my own expectations. And on the outside, I'd tell everyone how fucking awesome my life was and how I was like rocking shit out. And people would always ask me how I was, and the answer always had to be good because that's like becomes your reaction. How's life? Good. How's everything? Good. How's your family? Good. And you just react as everything's good.
And it's funny too because the positive people think that they clearly everyone wants to be around them, but to be honest with you, if you're in a shit mood, the last person you want to hang out with is friggin' Mr. Positive.
Yeah. Well, the law of attraction actually creates the law of repulsion also. So you'll naturally attract people, but you'll naturally repulse people at the same time. And it just depends on what we're aware of as to who we repulse and who we attract. Sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You can interrupt as much as you like. You're welcome to. It's funny though, because this is what I remember you talking about. And, it is so true. Like, especially when you have a look at the way people behave on social media everywhere, there's this need to pretend that everything's okay. There's this need to, put a smile on even when things are shit. And I'm not telling you that I don't believe people should bitch and complain in any way, shape or form. Like, I actually think, like, get your shit together and, and get your state in place. But there is this falsehood around it that if people think personal development or positive thinking is the way to go, and all you're doing is putting icing on a mud pie, meaning that you feel like shit, but I'm just going to, tell everyone I'm awesome anyway. It's a wank job, and it's actually not true. This is what I loved about what you shared, and I believe you're about to go even deeper into the cool, what's it called again?
The sine wave. But yeah, so what started happening was that once I got into that and I started realizing that even though I was expressing that everything was okay on the outside, that on the inside I had a lot of guilt, and there would be times, like there were times where I naturally felt like I was positive and that everything was going amazing. But I'd go through these flows of feeling guilty and down and depressed, and so I'd hide away and open the books again, and I'd study and I'd read and I'd research and figure out, trying to figure out why I'm so fucked up in that moment, or what I perceived as being fucked up in that moment. But then, like, a couple of days later or a week later, I'd like come back out to the world and everything's awesome and like, rock on. And so I'd go through these huge waves, and one day I just came crashing down. I thought, this is bullshit. I keep feeling guilty about, things in life, and I feel like I could never live up to my own expectations or fantasies that I'd created about how life should be. And then that's sort of when I started getting into more of, I won't call it quantum physics because, it is sort of, but it's not also at the same time, because really quantum is a study of mathematics, and there are principles that are created from physics and quantum physics, which is more of a theoretical base. And even quantum physicists, I've had the chance to speak to a couple of them, and they said, anyone who tells you that they know everything about quantum physics is full of shit, because no one knows nothing really. And there was a great quote by, there was a book that I read called Stalking the Wild Pendulum by a physicist called Isaac Bentov. And he said, you'll have to excuse me for my ignorance, but what I've found is that the smarter I become, the more ignorant I become. And it's really true, is that the more we learn, the more we don't know. And so anyway, I started getting into more of the theory behind that. And what I started finding was that if we break everything down from a quantum level right up to a universal level, there are certain principles that relate across all scales. And everything is a scale, because some people won't eat a cow because it's killing an animal, but then they'll kill a bug, and then that's different, right? So we relate things based on scale. But once something happens from a quantum scale right through to a universal scale, we can actually call that a universal law or a universal principle. Dr. John D. Martini gets into this stuff a lot if you want to get into more of that stuff. I've studied a lot of his stuff as well as doing my own thing. But what I found was that if we look at physical structures, when they get broken down to a quantum level, everything's really made up of energy and information. Yeah. And energy and information, when you look at it, travels in waves. So you can have different types of waves, but the basic one is a sine wave. And in order to have a full wave, you need to have both the positive and the negative. So it goes up and down, and that's called a full quantum or a full state. And when you have a look at different atoms and molecules as well, or when you look at atoms, there's something called the electron, and then there's also an anti-electron or a positron as well, and they actually balance each other out. So everything in the universe is balancing it out. It's called the law of balance.
My inner nerd is loving this. Continue.
Well, I'll get back into how this relates to business and all of those sort of things. So really at every level, everywhere I've been able to find is that everything balances each other out. And that's why it's called 0 point in quantum physics or mathematics, because everything really balances itself back out to be zero. Because whenever there's a positive, there has to be a negative, and whenever there's a negative, there's a positive. And also when you look at more of the spiritual text, when they talk about infinity, infinity isn't just an up and down sine wave. It's a perfectly balanced wave because it has both ups and downs on both. So it's perfectly balanced, which again relates to 0 point. Now, what happens is that what I've found when we get into mindset, a lot of what's being taught is that if you're more positive in life, it will lead to a positive life. Now, that's bullshit, because what I've been able to find now, I've had a lot of people debate this, but when I explain it and I get deeper into it, it blows their brains out. And the reason why I say this is because some people classify themselves as being positive, but that's an individual perception of themselves, because we all know that we both have positive and negative times. So every time I've spoken to a positive thinker, I say, are you negative? And they go, yes, sometimes. So they perceive that they're positive more of the time than they are negative. But the truth is we're actually balanced all the time.
Yeah.
Because we can be positive on the outside, but a lot of people who are positive on the outside, like especially in social media, are quite negative on the inside because they feel guilty or ashamed. And I know this, and I'll give you an example. Have you both ever been somewhere where you've sort of like over-exaggerated what you've done in life? And at that exact same moment when you've over-exaggerated, you've had like this guilt feeling or this oh shit feeling, or
Absolutely.
I hope they don't find out sort of feeling. Because
Never. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well anyway, I've done it. I probably still don't plenty.
I just then.
So what's happening is on the outside we create one perception, but on the inside we're actually balancing ourselves back out.
Yeah.
And so we'll feel those different emotions on the inside compared to how we are on the outside. And what that's doing is it's creating a split. Also, from what I've been able to study is that we're consciously aware. So we have, I won't say we have 3 different types of brains, because we don't. We have 3 different types of awareness. We have conscious awareness, unconscious awareness, and then we also have this thing called a subconscious. Now, the subconscious knows that everything is in balance because that's where wisdom is stored. So we're looking for the wisdom, and we'll keep looking for it until we find answers, and that's why we keep asking questions. But what happens is we might be aware of the conscious part of ourselves. So we go, you know, I am positive, I'm happy, because we wear those caps and we go, I'm proud of wearing these caps. You know, I say to people at my events, who in here is a kind person? Everyone puts up their hand and I go, right, who's an asshole? And 90% of people put down their hands. But when I ask them truthfully, have you ever been an asshole? And are there times where you are an asshole and you're happy to be an asshole? And all of a sudden hands start to creep back up, because we are both things. You know, I'm a nice guy, but I can also be an asshole as well. It depends on what cap I wear and also on the experience I'm having in that moment. You know, I'm a kind person, but I can also be really aggressive and angry. You know, it depends on the moment, in a moment by moment situation. But most people live or create a delusion, which they call a perception, which comes from their personality, which is really based on their personal reality, and reality is different for the individual. So we never have a reality. There's never a reality. There's my reality.
Yeah.
And my reality is different than everyone else's reality based on my past experiences and my perceptions. So in our brain splits up the conscious awareness. So if we classify ourselves as being positive, we have this positive ion in that conscious part of the brain. But because in the quantum state, everything's in balance, the negative has to be somewhere, and it sits in the unconscious part of the brain. Now, subconsciously, we're trying to get those 2 things back together to balance themselves back out as wisdom. Now, what will happen is when we're in that state, we start asking questions, because if you're super positive, you'll start to question things. And maybe I think it more happens when we're in a negative state more than a positive, because we become unaware when we're in a positive state all the time. Like, I know a lot of people want to be more positive, but the truth is that being positive all the time is shit, just as being negative all the time is shit. Because when we're positive, normally we forget about our own growth and we forget about our goals and our dreams. Like if I woke up this morning, my bank account was chockers and I could do everything, I would find a way after a couple of weeks to fuck it all up so I could actually go and do something that puts me under a bit of pressure in order to grow again. And so, we ask these questions, and if you have a look at the word question, it's quest for an ion or quest ion. And we're looking for the balance, those balanced ions, which are separated charges. We ask questions in order to get out there and to find the balance between things. Now, the more, John DeMartini says it the best, and he said that if you look at a spinning top and it's black and white, and you spin it at speeds of infinity, it will look grey. Now, the more that it starts to slow down, the more you see the black and white, but the more that spinning top wobbles. Now, the more someone wobbles in life, the more they'll see black and white, and the more fundamentalist they become in thinking, where they'll sit there and they'll go, well, things are either right or they're wrong. You do it this way or you do it that way. And they'll judge people based on right and wrong and black and white, and everything's fundamental to them. But that's the worst place to be. And they'll normally judge someone who sits on the fence. And I love sitting on the fence, because when you sit on the fence, that's actually the best place to be, because really you don't give a fuck. You realize that both things are both the same shit anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, peace and war are two of the same things. You put people who you love at Christmas time in a room with each other for a week, or a house with each other for a week, and they start fighting. And all of a sudden you take them away from each other and you separate them for a couple of weeks and a month, and all of a sudden they love each other again and they come back together, because those dynamics are pushing and pulling and helping us grow in life.
Yeah.
And I love that too, because when you think about it, right, like, it's so true. As business owners, so many business owners believe that what they're after is to get it done, is to finish it, is to get to whatever the goal is. It's, once I have this, then I can relax, then I can be happy. And here's what I've found, that, I have achieved those things in life where I'm like, okay, got the time, got the money, and it was good for a bit, but I got bored shitless. We need growth as human beings. Like, then the irony, though, too, is that if you actually have it and it's always there, as human beings, we take shit for granted. 100%. So ironically, instantly in that moment, it's polar opposite got created, in the sense of you don't have it anymore because it's there all the time, and it's invisible to you. And so I love this, because the concept, like, to me, it goes in so many different ways. It's don't strive for an outcome. To me, it's the moment I accepted that I got to grow consistently, that the more I grew, there was more to learn and more to grow. The moment I accepted that, my whole life changed, because I was no longer chasing an outcome. I was all about, like, just that insight. And I loved what you share, because if business owners were to get that, then all of a sudden their to-do list disappears. It becomes life. It becomes a journey. It becomes just a part of being an entrepreneur, right? Versus I've got to get this shit done, because getting this shit done means I'm awesome, fantastic, whatever. But you continue, because I'm freaking loving this. My little inner nerds, having, like, mental orgasms. Keep going.
No, well, it's very, very true. And it's so anyway, the more that I started getting deeper into that stuff, I realized that, we're always balancing out everything anyway, whether we like it or not. The difference is whether we're aware of it. The other night I had I journal most days, and I got asked today by my personal trainer. He said to me, how do you journal? He goes, I don't think I'm journaling correct, but there is no way to journal. What you're doing is you're taking ideas and you're putting them on paper in order to find either the balance in things, or in order to find the lesson or the learning. Yeah. So some days when I'm going mental, I just journal a whole bunch of crap out of my head, and I don't filter it, because a lot of the time, like at my events, I'll have people who come along, they dump all this shit out, and I go, did you know you just said that, this, I'm telling you that this is what's going on. And they go, yeah, but I didn't mean that. Well, that's exactly what they meant, but now they've just filtered it, and because they've filtered it, now they have a different reference point. And so we'll filter our own stuff.
That. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, and so with my journal, I don't filter it. Like, I'm a smart guy when it comes to this stuff, but I sit there and I just write whatever's in my head, and there's contradictions in there's stuff fighting each other. And then after that, once I've got it all out, I call it a brain dump or a brain fart, because I just brain fart over the page. Then from there, I just sit down, I relax, and I go through and I circle the incongruencies and the patterns that are happening in there, and then I work out what the lesson and the learning is. But the other night I had one where I was working, I had a really productive day. The weekend was super productive. I've just finished, a huge coaching course, really, which I'm hoping is going to revolutionize the coaching and also the mindset industry, because we haven't just bridged an old model of, mindset, or I won't name, certain types of courses or anything specific. We really haven't. I wanted to start from scratch, like completely scratch, and make sure that it follows those universal laws, because I know that there are people out there who are teaching like quantum mindset and all that stuff. But when you actually have a look at it, it's not really quantum, because it breaks a lot of universal laws. So it's sort of there, but it's not really. So we wanted to create our own stuff. Anyway, I'd done all that stuff for the weekend, felt $1 million, and then all of a sudden I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to eat some shitty food tonight, because for the next 6 weeks I'm on the road with our national tour, and normally like I'm speaking every 2 to 3 days, and I'm always around heaps of people. I can't feel tired and frustrated and grumpy because of eating shit food. So I thought, cool, tonight's the night. And then in my brain went, you don't really want the crap food. You feel great. Don't stress about it. Just keep doing what you're doing. You'll feel great. You could work until midnight, 1 o'clock, and you'll feel amazing. But I went, you know what? I'm going to get the shit food. And I ate the shit food, and afterwards I felt bloated. I felt tired. I felt lethargic. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking, why did I do this? So I grabbed the journal and I wrote out what happened in that moment. And in that moment, I perceived that I was going to go without for 6 weeks, something that I thought that I would be missing out on something. But again, the truth is you never miss out on anything, because everything's always there. It just depends. And it really comes down to, are you following your mission, your values, and your purpose in life? They're the only questions that we really need to, the only thing that we really need to focus on and follow. And in that moment, I was focusing more not on the mission and the purpose and the mission and doing my thing. It was more about the thing that I was going to miss out on. And because of that, it automatically created the polar opposite, which was, missing out creates the thing. So because of that, I was thinking about the thing, which then caused, problems to my mission and all those sort of things. So it's not until you get stuff out of your head and you can see the balance that's happening, because that's what I did. I just went back and looked for the balance, that I realized that everything was right there, and I got the learning that we never miss out on anything. It's always there, and it's always guiding us towards our mission. Which then, I guess, leads me to how to be a great leader and all of that sort of stuff in business. If that's what you wanted to go on to with the desperation, inspiration stuff.
We don't even have to cover that. We could just...
Michael,
it's just been open loop that never gets closed.
Michael, I just want to ask you something personal about how you're talking about the neutral space, how the positive and the negative, there's always a neutral playing ground. Talking from your personal experience when you were younger, and I know a lot of people will benefit from the mindset side of depression, of people who are now reflecting an external of a negative side of a down spiral. Where did you find is the balance for the positive spiral of that, to create the balance in between that?
Yeah, that's a really, really awesome question. And I mean, I don't specifically target depression, because I think as a society, a lot of people have their own ideas about what it is, and a lot of people share shit on Facebook about what it is, which then reinforces the problem itself.
Yeah, just talk from your personal space, because that's all that we basically have.
Yeah, and I can also tell you what I know has worked for probably the thousands of people that have come through our events with similar things. What I know is that normally in our life I have never met a person so far who doesn't have a life purpose, and our life purpose comes from getting really, really clear with our values. So my number one value in life is learning, and it's so obvious as well, like our values, but I think most people overlay other people's values on top of their own. Like, we have a lot of people who come to our events and they go, I really should be a better mum, and I go, why should you? Like, who determines what a good mum is?
Yeah.
But they compare themselves to someone else. Now, like my sister, her highest value is being a mum, and she is phenomenal. Like, she is just amazing at it, and she's inspiring. But she doesn't inspire me to be a dad. She's just inspirational in the way that she does it, and inspiring people just do their thing. That is it. And the truth is that inspirational people are shit at 99.9% of things. They're just good at the 0.01%. And I'm good at the 0.01% of the things that I do, but I'm shit with most other things. Hence why we had an internet dropout, when we first started the podcast, because I'm not a techie person, right? I just do what I do. And when we're clear with that, when we get really clear with what our values are in life, so my highest value for me is learning and then teaching. So I learn stuff, I teach it. I learn stuff, I teach it. And the challenge for me is I go away on holidays. Now, the idea of most people's holiday is really escapism. They're trying to escape the shit that they put themselves in, which isn't living their values. So people ask me all the time, they go, what do you do on holidays? And I'm like, learn. I take my laptop, I work. And they're like, but that's work. And I'm like, yeah, I just work in a different location. Like, I do the same shit every day. I wake up, I teach, I learn, I read, I write, I educate. So I go out to somewhere and I'll be in the cab with someone, like in Bali. And the guy asked me what I do, and then I get all excited and stuff, and then I get talking, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm, doing exactly what I'm doing now. It doesn't, it never stops. My fiance Jess goes, I can't take you anywhere, because every time they go, what are you doing? And I talk about mindset, and they go, oh, I got this problem. I'm like, tell me about it. And I get all excited. So it's what I do. It's who I am. I can't escape that. Now, most people, that's acceptable for most athletes. Like, if you're an athlete, most people accept that you train every day, you exercise, you eat a certain way. But if it's anything out of the athletic field, they think you're a freak. Like, if you're an entrepreneur and you love business and you talk about business everywhere, you're a tripper. Like, can't you talk about anything else?
Yeah.
Don't you do anything else apart from work? But if you're an athlete, it's okay, just not as a business owner. Or if you're passionate about learning and and educating, you can't do that all the time, because if not, you're a freak. And so our society has these really these really distorted ideas about how we should behave and how we should act in regards to following our values. So anyway, once I knew what my values were, my highest values, which I'll just give them the quick top 4. So my highest is learning. My second highest value is teaching. My third highest value is wealth creation. Fourth is business. And then my fifth one is exercise and training. Now, my life reflects that. Like, I lifted my first weight when I was 14 years of age, and I think I figured out that I haven't been there hasn't been longer than 5 days that I haven't exercised since I was 14, because I just crave it. The first thing that I pack when I have to go traveling, or when I go anywhere, the first thing that I put in my suitcase is a book. So I just go to my library, I pick a book. So the values are right in front of you. Some people, it might be that when they're away from their kids, all they do is they think about their kids. So even when they're on holidays, they're thinking about their kids. They go away to get away from the kids, but they still think about the kids. That's because it's reflective of their highest value. And our brains and we're always getting pushed in regards to our purpose and our values.
Yeah.
But from there, once you know that, then you create a mission. The challenge that we have as a society, and going back to the question, is that a lot of people create a fantasy about and a fantasy is something that is unrealistic in regards to our purpose, our values, and our mission, our own individual ones. And then a fantasy is also something that breaks universal laws. So something like being positive all the time is something that breaks a universal law. Like, it's something that's a delusion. But a lot of people in our society create it and then reinforce it. And because of that just creates more problems. And there's lots of fields out there that are trying to master this shit by recreating it. But when you look at statistics, depression rates, anxiety rates, suicide rates have really just gone through the roof. The more that we push this stuff, the more it creates the opposite, because we're always trying to balance everything back out anyway. So, I mean, I've had plenty of people who fight me and argue about this stuff. At the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me, because I go back and do my own thing that I love. It's really, is your life a direct reflection of your own beliefs? If I believe one thing about money, but I'm broke all the time, I can say a million affirmations about being abundant, but I'm still broke and poor, struggling financially, whether you like it or not.
I love what you're saying too, because ultimately it's, and if I think that this is where you're going with it, where it's if you're depressed, it's because you're not living from your values. It's because you haven't actually identified who you truly are, and you're probably living a life that's been put on you, or you've inherited, or something's going on, and that's why you're experiencing so much friction. Is that sort of where you're going with that?
I got to be careful, because there are industries and stuff that want to attack if I say certain things, and I don't have a relationship. Like, normally when I've built rapport and a relationship with someone, I can have deep conversations with them about this sort of stuff. So I'm just cautious of that, because based on a quick generalization of someone sitting online for 20 minutes, this could just be out of control for them. So I don't really want to go there with this conversation. But what I do know is that when we create a fantasy about something that can't actually exist, the more that we buy into that, the more it creates a problem. And then the more we are in that problem, the more we create the fantasy, and it keeps reinforcing itself. And so that's, I think, a lot of the time that happens when, someone tries to be positive all the time, and all of a sudden they start feeling negative, and they go, shit, this isn't normal. Why do I feel bad? Why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? Why do I feel this way? And then so because of the guilt and the shame and all that stuff, they ask themselves the wrong questions. And then they go, I know what I need. I need the complete opposite again, which then throws them into the cycle. And so they just keep in the cycle. When we have heaps of people come to my events, and when I explain this stuff and I show them, and there's another thing called perturbation. And perturbation is a process where a seed, when it grows, it gets life force, and that life force makes it grow from the inside out. And as the seed grows, it creates pressure, and that pressure eventually creates the cracking, and the cracking is what helps it grow. Now, for every one of us, we all go through the same thing mentally and emotionally, is that we'll go through times where we're under huge amounts of pressure, and eventually it will build up. And just as we get to that breaking point, we want to give up. We just think, this is it. This is bullshit. I can't handle this crap anymore. But all of a sudden, we just crack. And when we crack, that's when we get that huge realization. And that realization is the part that helps us grow to the next level. If we don't and we fail that next level in life, we get to repeat the test, just like school. You know, if you fail reception, the test in reception, you just repeat it. And so a lot of people come to my events and they go, you know, this same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. I'm like, it's because you're just not learning from the test.
Yeah.
Now, some people take that the wrong way and they think that that's full of shit, but then they just go and they just keep repeating the test. Whether they like me or not, I don't really care. It's their life is a reflection of their beliefs. And some people love their beliefs and love their pain and love their ignorance more than they love their results, even though they crave the results. It really comes down to our results. And, you know, what I do know is that when we sit in our comfort zone is comfortable, but it's also the zone of familiarity of what we already know. So in order to grow, we always have to get to that place of being really uncomfortable, because that's the unfamiliar. But most people are so shit scared of that feeling of being unfamiliar and uncertain that they just don't go into it. So they just keep repeating what they know, even though that they hate that pain. Yeah. And it just creates a cycle. So that's why, I mean, one of my important things in how I grew my business was that I created a community, because I know that support networks are so important, because most of our society just keeps struggling and we keep reinforcing patterns that don't fucking work. At the end of the day, it's just up to the individual whether they really look at the results or whether they look at what they already believe and just keep reinforcing what they already believe. So I think there's two things there in that anyway. So there's the living other people's values, living up to everybody else's expectations, comparing yourself to everybody else and not knowing who you are, which when you go back and have a look at almost all major religions, they all say, and all major philosophy as well, it all talks about that you need to love everybody, including yourself. How can you love yourself when you don't know who the fuck you are? Yeah. You know, and that comes down to the second principle, which is to know thyself. But most people don't know who they are. Like, heaps of people go, well, I am who I am. And I go, well, who are you? What are your top values? And they're like, you know, what's your purpose in life? What's your mission? Do you have it clearly written? Are you super clear on it? Do you know every day when you wake up what you're supposed to be doing? They're like, that just shows me that they're not clear. They've just created a delusion for themselves, and then they reinforce it. Yeah. So that's what I think, that's part of it. And then also our society, especially with social media these days, create a huge delusion. Like, you know, entrepreneurship's this amazing thing where you just sit back and you put your feet up and, you know, you live in a multi-million-dollar house by the beach and drive Ferraris and there's, you know, boobs and bums everywhere. It's when you're a real entrepreneur, you know that that's not how it works. You know, that it's like that maybe for a week, but then you drop straight back into the shit, and it's the shit that no one else wants to do. That's why you're an entrepreneur. That's why you're, you know, a 1%er, because no one else wants to do it because it sucks. Yeah. You know, you get stress, you get pressure, there's staffing issues. It's either what you love or you don't love. Yeah. Like for me, I love the whole pressure of business. You know, for me, it's like going to the gym. I don't go to the gym to lift easy weights. I don't go to the gym to lift light stuff. I go to the gym to create pain and to push myself in order to get the result at the end, which is walking out of there and just going, you know what, I fucking took that on and I won and I beat it and I feel great about life because I know that I keep taking on challenges that are greater than where I am now. And that's what I love about business.
Absolutely.
And I love that too. You know, like when you actually spoke, we were looking at values and we went deep, and I've done deep dives on values heaps of times. There was actually this really cool thing where Mr. Mojo here helped me identify a deeper value that we kind of like demystified one of my values. But one thing was really interesting when I was unpacking mine and did the work, and oh my God, guys, you've got to get in the room with this man and, you know, tap into and discover yourself. Like, I've been doing personal development stuff for like, I don't know, 20 years. I've also invested a ridiculous amount of money over the years in my education and growth. And what was really cool about doing values with Mr. Mojo Master here is just his unique take on it and how he really does know his shit. Like, I had my values written out and I was pretty proud of them. You know, I'd done the work. I put my hand up to volunteer to be the person that he unpacks. And what was interesting was what came up. Like, for me, it was business, growth, teaching, learning. I had one word there that we changed, which was luxury, but it all made sense. Of course, I love business. I value business. I value growth. You know, growth is one of my highest values, and business gives me the opportunity. I believe business is the best personal growth, spiritual growth, everything growth journey anyone can ever go on, and I'll always be hooked on it because of that. But if you don't value that stuff, if you value family and comfort and certainty and other things, then business is probably going to drive you crazy, and it may not be the right thing for you to do. Just to sort of give you an insight, though, what was really cool about what Michael did was I'm sort of standing there and I'm like, one of my values is luxury. And he's like, oh, yeah. And just so you know, I've spent money and I've spent a lot of money unpacking values and working with certain coaches and doing events like Date with Destiny. And I never came when he showed me this, it changed the whole game. So for me, I was like, I value luxury. That's why I go out there and make money so I can experience luxurious things. And when he questions it and asks me, hey, is it really luxury that you value, or is it creativity? And literally my whole life flashes in, like that moment where you see like yourself from a baby all the way up until now and then back again, whoosh, whoosh. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you're right. Like, it's actually the ability to be creative, and the luxury is a part of creativity for me, in the way my little funny head like locates that. In that moment, it's funny, but in that moment and getting, oh shit, I really value being creative. And all of a sudden I really got in that moment why I have my business. And it's had me be even more creative with my events, my speaking, my marketing, my everything, my home, just stepping into that and owning that and living from a space of, literally making decisions from a space of, is this in alignment with creativity, growth, learning, teaching, and business, and living from that place. Oh, it's been so much more epic being me in the last few months since I met Michael. I really recommend you guys check him out. He's actually running events all over the world, well, Australia and New Zealand right now, where you can spend a day with him and actually do some of this work yourself. As business owners, I really do believe that your business is a reflection of you. And if you've got shit going on, don't look for, well, what's the next strategy? First, look within. Have a look at what's going on in your own friggin' head and get that shit sorted. Know yourself. Make sure you're the best version of yourself. You're actually functioning in your genius, that, you're honoring who you truly are and bringing the best version of you forward and outsourcing all the stuff that you suck at as fast as possible. We're gonna put up a link to Michael's event within the YouTube channel, on our Facebook group for Marketing with Vino.
Let's get JT to put it here. So JT, you're listening to this, into that link here.
Yep, JT, you're a legend, and it's also going to pop up here, so you can enter it in. In saying that, though, we were having a chat on the phone, and we were talking about this exact thing, Michael. That that this is what shapes a business owner. That if what's inside of here is not the right what's inside of here, nothing we do strategy-wise is actually going to work for us. We're going to find more and more friction. And is that what you...
of learning all this stuff. And really, I learn all of this stuff for me, to benefit me in my life. And it just so happens that my second highest value is teaching, so I might as well just teach this stuff with what works for me. But in all honesty, I don't have all the answers. What I do know is what's worked for me up until this point, and there are people out there who know shitloads more than I do. I just, it depends. Like, a lot of the people that I work with, they're super smart, but teaching isn't their highest value, so they can't relay the knowledge that they have. But going back to the desperation, inspiration sort of thing, is that you have to just do your own thing, because most people, when they live everybody else's values, it might only be like that one value of that one person might only be a 5 kilo plate, which, it's a 5 kilo weight on their back. But over time, everybody's value system implemented or put over the top of yours causes you to lose yourself, and eventually it will crush you. And so a lot of business owners that I've worked with over the years, they try to be everything to everybody. So like, it's happened more in our society with females over the years, but it's happening a lot more with males now as well, where I'll get females who are in business, or even just mums and dads who come to mums who come to our events, where they go, I need to be the perfect mum, I need to be the perfect wife, I need to have an amazing body, so I need to train like for an hour every day at least. I need to eat good food. I need to be educated as well. I need to have a good job. And so when they look at all that stuff, they can never live up to their own expectations they've set, because they don't know who they are. And you don't get to be everything. You can't. It's just, you get to be yourself, and that's all you get to be. And like one of the ladies that I worked with, they've got a $14 million business in Adelaide. I work with her and her husband, both of them. And when we did her values, she sat back and she went, do you know, I realized that my kids aren't in my top 3 values. And she said, I'm ashamed of that. And I said, why are you ashamed? It's how it is. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mum. It just means that your inspiration comes from doing what you do. Kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do exactly, or they respond to how you are. But kids have their own individual value systems because they're born with part of them, and then others become patterned in as they grow up. But no matter, you can have 2 kids who get brought up in an amazing family who are twins. One ends up drug addicted and the other one goes on to be, you know, amazing and do their thing in life. So it doesn't really matter. They're going to do their own thing anyway. Your job is to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And once I explained that to her, she just went, fuck, that's amazing. Like, all I have to be is just be an inspiration. And the kids, if they want inspiration, then they'll use me as a way of being inspired. And that's really all that she can do as far as a parent. Like, it's not, you can't tell your kids and you can't teach them their values. That's how the kids lose their values and lose themselves in life. So the best thing that we can do, even as business owners, is just to get super clear on our values. And when it comes to desperation and inspiration, I know in the past where I've made decisions where I'm desperate in business, there have been the times where I always get taught the lesson. And the lesson, it's the test, right? The test always comes. Like yesterday, I had a person who was like fucking irate about paying for stuff. And it's someone, you know, as a business owner, it's that person as well that you help too much, where you try to do everything in order to help them more and more and more. And then again, they keep putting off payments and things like that until you say, look, what's going on? And then they tell you how you're an asshole and you're always about money and all that stuff. But you were never the one about money. It was always them. And you know, it was sort of, you know, you become the asshole because of their, you know, their stuff. But again, I just sat back and I just had a couple of deep breaths and I just went, you know what, I'm not going to play into this because I know that it's just a test. If I fail this and I get all angry and I get all upset and I'm all pissed off, that's an hour of my time gone because it's going to take up time and time in my space of mind. It's just not worth it. Like, it's just another test. So once I pass that, I know that I'll go on to another level, but it's just going to mean that now next time there's going to be 2 or 3 pissed off irate customers. And then it's going to be 10 and 20 and 50 and 100. And I can't wait till the day until 1 million pissed off people, you know, come at me because it means that I'm doing something awesome and I'm, you know, doing something at a super high level.
Absolutely.
But it's the way that
I love that too, because I love that. That's so cool. It's you know, I can't wait for the day I've got 1 million people pissed off with me because it means I'm actually serving billions, you know, to have like it's, I'm probably, you know, not even just, I've gone universal. I'm not even global anymore.
Yeah, we can't have a good without a bad, right? So, you know, I have people come to my events all the time and they go, you know, I've heard such great things about you. And I'm like, well, there's plenty of bad shit about me as well. So let's just balance that out because you'll make your own perception of what I do either way. You know, some people love me. Some people have been told like I'm a fraud and I'm a fake and I'm a con man and, you know, I'm a cult leader. And because, you know, when people in our society don't know how to describe someone, they just make shit up. So they're like, well, that sounds like a rah-rah event, must be a cult leader. And so I get called that shit all the time. But then other people come to the event, they go, my friends and family said that you were like this crazy cult leader guy who was like going to brainwash us and all of that. And then they're like, I learned shitloads. And then they go back and they tell their families and their families, you know, they butt heads and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had people whose parents who told their kids not to come to the event because I'm like this crazy guy, end up coming to the event because they see the changes that happened in the kids. And when I say kids, they like 30 or 40-year-old adults. But, you know, it's sort of, when you're an inspiration, you inspire others to be inspiring. And the only way you can do that is by being yourself. Because when you try to be everyone else, you're going to be miserable, which means other people just think that that's normal. You know, and it's not. The way to be thriving in life is normal. We're all born to thrive. We're all born to live a kick-ass life. We get values that are put in front of our face every day. They're right in front of us. Just most people don't see them. And because of that, they downgrade and play life at such a small level because they think that they're small, when in fact, we're so much bigger than what we are. Like, we really are. You know, every time I catch some, you know, shit that's going on in my head that's been stopping me from going to that next level, I sit back and I'm just like, I can't believe it was right there. What a douchebag. Like, it was there right in front of me the whole time, except it just took a little bit for my brain to click to it. And sometimes it creates a lot of pain. But I think going to the desperation, inspiration thing is that when you're in business, you make decisions all the time based on inspiration or based on desperation. They're the only 2 ways that we really make decisions. And what I know is that when I've hired staff before, like this is a great example, when I've hired staff and I've been desperate and I've been going through the up and down emotionally, because the polarity is the more and more that you're one, like the more negative you are, the more it will create more of a split between positive and negative. So the more and more one gets reinforced, the further the gap is. And that's why like drug addicts will normally have high highs and low lows. They'll keep coming up and down because the higher we go, the lower we go also. And the more we try to be more positive and more happy and all that stuff in life, the more low we go as well. It's just that it might be that time of guilt or that time of shame. You know, it's just the way you deal with it may not be in public, it may be in private. So in those states, when you're in those states of highs and lows and you're going up and down, you're riding the wave emotionally, when you make decisions, you'll make decisions based on desperation, and that normally relates to also fear and greed. Like all economies every day are based on fear and greed. That's what drives global economies. And when we do stuff like that, the decision that we make, we're always going to get taught the lesson, and that is be inspired. Be inspiring, because that's where you're congruent. And inspiration, love, and gratitude are the places of balance. So most people think that love is all of a positive thing. Like I like watching those TV shows where they have like, you know, first dates and all of that. And some people have these delusions and fantasies about what love is. And they think that love's all this soppy shit that, you know, it's all positive and you just agree with each other and all that stuff. But I'll relate it back to kids. You know, my sister with her kids, I was talking to her and my mum about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said, your kids are like your biggest dream, right? They're the most joyful thing that you've had. And she goes, 100%. And I go, but they're also your biggest nightmare. Now, what happens is deep inside, we know the truth, but a lot of the time we don't speak the truth because we're afraid of how society judges it, right? You know, like sometimes when something happens and it's bad for someone, you're like, oh, I feel really bad. But in the back of your mind, you're like, it's about fucking time. You know, you've got that thing going in the back of your head because, you know, it's sort of like it's there, but we don't express that in public. And so for her, I said, your kids are also your biggest nightmare, aren't they? And she like looked at me and smiled. And I said, that's love. Love is both the pleasure and the pain. It's the nightmare, it's the dream, and it comes together to form love, which is gratitude, because you take on challenges, but those challenges you do based on the enjoyment and the joy and all those sort of things, which balances itself back out. And you'll sit there and you just go, you know what? I just love what I do. And you can listen to someone's languaging. I love it. We've just moved into a beautiful house on the beach, and everyone comes over and they're like, this is the most amazing house. You know, it's 1,000 square meters. It's just, you know, it's an amazing house. But everyone comes over and they're like, your house is so amazing. And I'm like, it's on the beach. Let me tell you about it. I wake up in the morning. I've got to go outside and sweep the front porch because there's fucking sand everywhere. All through my windowsills, I looked at it before and there's all sand on the inside of the house. You know, everything, it's salt water. Everything just deteriorates and rusts and corrodes. And it's like, it's my nightmare and my dream at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, I sit out there at night time watching the sunset and I go, I'm so grateful for this. I wouldn't live anywhere else. Yeah. But at the same time, it's both pleasurable and painful, and it's my dream and it's my nightmare at the same time. It just depends. It's, you know,
it's very
what
well
level
said.
you know, and that's love. And that's also where gratitude exists. Gratitude, when you're truly grateful, you'll just sit there and your thoughts go silent. And you don't think about what's pleasurable, nor do you think about what's painful. You just sit there and you just smile. That's gratitude. That's being in the present moment, grateful, inspired, and that's love. So that's really where we want to get to. And if, as a business owner, if someone's sitting there every day going, fuck, I've got to go back to work tomorrow, the shit's hit the fan, these are problems, it's because it's not your love. It might be because you want the money, and money might be important, but there's plenty of ways to make money. It's just, you know, business may not be the thing. You know, business is a nightmare. But if it's...
Well, honestly, to me, it's not, but to me, it's a nightmare for the wrong person, because I don't know about you, like, yeah, of course there's been challenging times, but I've never for a second doubted or thought, like, to me, it's my thing. Like, my first business, I started when I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. You know, it's default. Just had an idea, went and door knocked and washed cars for $5 with a bucket and some detergent and a really shitty sponge. And it's been that way ever since. And for me, it's not a nightmare. Yes, there's challenges. Yes, there's growth. Yes, there's times I'm like, fuck. But for the most part, I could not. It's like the beach house. You know, yes, there's sand, but I wouldn't live anywhere else. And I really do believe that if it's the right thing, then it's the right thing, and you just can't leave it no matter what. You can't divorce the damn thing. And 100%. So guys, as business owners, do yourself a favor, get in the room with this guy. You know, find a way to really get to know yourself, but not just from the perspective of, is business for me or is it not? The more you know yourself, the more you can actually craft. And this is what I think is super sexy. You can craft a business that is designed for the support and the up-leveling of your values, your true you. Like, create the business around you, but first you need to know who you are. Otherwise, you're going to go after creating a business that's somebody else's thing. Like, I don't know about you, Michael, but I've got people that come to me and I say, what do you want? And they're like, oh, you know, I want to create freedom. I want to work one day a week or 2 days a week. And literally in like friggin' 4 minutes, right? Not even less than that. Sometimes it's 2 minutes. They'll quickly find out that's not their truth. I take them through a bit of a future pace, and then they go, oh, hold on, that would suck. What would I do? Like, I'd be bored. And then they learn, oh shit, what I really want is to have my mornings to myself, you know, and I want to surf or meditate or whatever in the mornings, but then I want to do in the business stuff or on the business stuff in the afternoon. And literally often in a 4-minute conversation, they can create business freedom purely by just, oh, okay, I'll just take my mornings off and I'm good to go. Like, but ironically, because the goal was actually not true, it wasn't their truth. It was what they thought they should chase. It's eluded them for years, because it will elude you when it's not your truth, because it's just like you're not wired. Everything you're doing is actually not in alignment with it. And when you tap into who you are and then create your business from that place, well, as you see, you get to 700% your business and do some pretty epic things.
I think just on that quickly, if you don't mind me jumping back in, normally when someone uses the word freedom, it's because they're trapped. Being trapped and using the word freedom are two of the same things. So every time someone tells me that freedom is part of their values or that they want more freedom, it's just because I know that there's something that they're doing that's trapping them, and it's because they're not living congruently with their highest values. So for me, you know, the word business is like sport. You know, if someone says I'm good at sport, what does that really mean? Like, there's a million sports. It's just what does that actually mean? Some people are really good at tennis, but really shit at cricket. Then you play tennis. So you need to be more specific with business as such, because, you know, for me, I love the idea of business, but what I'm really, really good at is I'm really good at the big picture stuff. I love like hard challenge. Like, I love being under pressure. So for me, you know, I love being put in a position where I can just like nail sales, or you know, when I have an idea and everyone's like, it's not going to work, and I'm like, you watch, it'll fucking work. I'll make it happen, and I'll work like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'll do that for a whole month until I'm absolutely exhausted and I crash, but it happens. That's the stuff that I love. Like, I love, because to me, it's like the gym session. I love lifting big, heavy weights that, you know, it's like, I'm not sure whether it's going to crush me or not. Like, I like that. That's the way that I live life. But what I don't like in the business, there's heaps of things. I hate details. So, you know, when my team comes to me, they're like, oh, here's a big list of stuff. I'm like, go back and chunk it up, or just give me a quick brief. Like, you've got 3 seconds, make it quick. Because I don't need to know all the details. I hate that stuff. You know, I like finances, but I like it big picture finances so I can overlook things and then detail it if I need to. But that's not my job. That's not what I'm good at. Some people, one of my good friends and mentors was the ex-head of profitization for AirAsia. And he said, you know, Tony Fernandez, who built AirAsia, he was like Tony's right-hand man. He said, you know, with Tony, he was really, really, really good with finances and numbers and people. So that's what he did. That was his thing. Like, he was a number cruncher. He loved the numbers and he loved people. So he just combined the two things that he was good at and hired everybody else. So it's not, the business shouldn't be seen as a whole thing, because I'm shit at most things in business. I'm just good at the couple of things, and I focus on them and hire everybody else.
Very well said,
and spot on, you know, and that's what keeps you in inspiration versus desperation. You know, so like, nailed it. Thank you so much. You're a freaking rock star. I could keep talking to you for hours and hours and hours. I'm sure our listeners could keep listening too.
Michael, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, if they want to follow you, if they want to know more about who you are, what you do, why you do, where can they go? I know you've got a podcast. Is there any other channels? How can they get more from you?
Cool. So there is the Mojo Master podcast as well. I'm like, I don't want to like promote my podcast and your podcast, but there is a podcast on there. I used to do it frequently, but I do it sporadically these days. Just you know, when I meet someone cool and I think they need to be interviewed, I jump on and do it. So there's that. You can find that on iTunes, just the Mojo Master podcast. Also the Mojo Master Coach on Facebook. That's normally where I'm the most interactive. I actually do spend probably a good hour on there every day, just talking to people and you know, chatting. Like, I have heaps of people who just say, hey, I listen to your podcast or whatever. I really like finding out who's in our community. For me, community is important, and so are friendship circles, because I didn't have that as a kid. So now it's important. If you do come to my events, you know, I normally say to everyone, if you want to come out afterwards for dinner, come out to dinner, because I'm not one of those speakers who, like, I have a private life and I have a business life. I just have a life, and that life involves being around good people. And so I really spend a lot of time. You probably heard me talk about this, Gabby, when at Regan's event, and I said, you know, you need to know who your clients are and you need to know who they're not, because the law of attraction creates the law of repulsion, and it also creates the law of attraction. So I like attracting people who I can just have dinner with, have a glass of wine, eat some food with and have a good conversation. The people who I want to repulse I call them the stiffs. Like, I used to do a lot of corporate work, and I'd go into these companies where all these people would like had ties done up, and they, you know, had cut off blood flow to their brain, which would cause their sphincters to tighten up too much, and they'd feel stiff, and, you know, then they'd question everything that I do, and it was really uncomfortable, and I don't like that. I like just being me and you know, enjoying other people. So, you know, jump on and say hello on our Facebook page as well, and I'll, you know, let me know if you enjoy the podcast. If you've got any questions, jump on as well. You know, I like hearing from people. You can also check out the mojomaster.com.au. So that's with the AU on the end, so .com.au. You can jump on there and check out what I do. Also, we've got our national tour coming up, which starts actually, I think, you know, in just over a week. And then we're going to 11 stops around Australia. And then we've got 3 stops in New Zealand as well. Hopefully, I think New Zealand, we're sort of, you know, ticket sales are lagging, so we're not sure if we're going to go yet, but I'm hoping that it'll pick up in the next couple of days. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll have that link. We'll get our beautiful team to put the links up for that for you guys too. So you'll be able to find the links directly in the Facebook group. By the way, if you're not in the Facebook group yet, go to marketingwithvino.com, hit the button that says join the group, and we'll welcome you into our private Marketing with Vino group where you can ask us questions and talk back at us, because we'd love to hear from you. And we'll have all the links to follow this amazing man up there too. Michael, Mojo, Mr. Rockstar Awesome, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much. Huge fan. Lots of love. And everybody for listening, for tuning in. If you're watching, if you're listening, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. Our guys are the best listeners on the planet, Michael. Like, they never interrupt. They're phenomenal. So here's just a shout out to all of you for being awesome listeners. We love you lots. Mwah.
Thanks for your
Excellent.
time,
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to do what I love. So thank you.
Ciao.
You've been listening to Marketing with Vino. If you enjoyed this episode and want to access the resources discussed in this episode, go to marketingwithvino.com and select which episode you've listened to.